Hey, well, it's
that was
Tuesday night
intense.
again at 11 o'clock p.m. in the beautiful city of Calgary, Alberta. And you know what that means, folks?
It
It's
means
time for another episode of The Ride with Chevy and Nasty. Chev, how are you doing this week?
I'm good. It's episode 32, Sheldon. 32 episodes of The Ride. We've managed to make it. Sometimes down to the wire, sometimes from the back of a van. But very excited to be back chatting with you tonight. We got a lot of people tuning in already. Bruno, Craig Hannum, Jamin, Ernie Regis.
Hey, Ernie.
And more will be trickling in. I'm good, Sheldon, but I am sweating. I'm as hot inside as I was outside today.
I'm not gonna lie to you. So yesterday, we're sitting around, kicked on the AC early, right? Because it was hot. And I noticed over a couple of hours, it went from cold to cool to, is this thing even on? Chev, my AC went down during Calgary's first heat wave of the summer. I am dying. But this is one of the things, though, when you're a camper and you learn to adapt to when it gets like 35 degrees out there in your trailer and you don't have AC. See this thing right here?
Was that water?
It's water, a little sprayer.
Yeah.
This has been keeping me cool all day long when I'm sitting here working at my computer. My wife just walks in and randomly gives me the squirt. So if you see me drenched, I might not look that great, but at least I'm staying cool. But yeah, hey, if any of you guys know anything about AC, hit me up, DM me after the show. I do have Clearview coming in tomorrow, but God, I hope they can fix it in one visit.
Well, I tell you, I got a portable AC unit. And as you know, I had my windows redone, and the only room that this portable unit fits in is my son's, but he's got a cantilever window. So I had to go to Lowe's or Home Depot, one of those, and try and figure out a fix for it. So I got to work on that after the show tonight because I can't sleep in this. It's ridiculous. I was in jeans and cowboy hat for Western Week because it's Stampede. We'll talk about it in a second. I sweat all day long. I come home after work, strip down to my underwear. Bruno, that's for you because I'm not doing the show in any pants tonight. Strip down, and I'm still sweating. I don't even know where I'm going to sleep tonight. I might dig a hole from my basement to cool off. But things are heating up on the show. We're going to have a good one tonight. Guys, we're going to talk some CFL. We're going to talk some Stampede. We got a special guest. Our good buddy Darryl McAvena is going to join us, performance freight management, but also a rodeo athlete in his day and still very connected to the rodeo culture. So he'll give us a little bit of a breakdown of that because I'm a city slicker. I don't know what your rodeo background is, Sheldon, but I'm eager to have Darryl on the show. He's contributed so much, and now we're going to have him on. And then it's Shark Week, Sheldon, and we'll talk a little bit about that right here on The Ride. Bruno says it's not that hot. I think it's hot. Do you find this hot, Sheldon?
I find this hot just because it comes on and hits you so fast. But you know what else is going to hit you fast tonight? 300-pound poetry tray. Cue us up. Let's start it off with a bang. With a huge Yahoo, this ride is on track, and it's Stampede Week. Good stories we won't lack.
You can pick your poison, because this is the greatest outdoor show, from parades to rides to concerts, and of course, the world-famous rodeo.
If you fancy sneakers and a ball cap, or a Stetson and boots, this week is for you, whatever your roots. I think what I'm saying is there's a lot of fake cowboys out there, but it's okay during Stampede.
I'm not even wearing my cowboy hat today because I didn't want to hit it. I saw Darryl's and I was like, no, I'm not wearing cowboy hat. I'm a fake. So much to talk about. We don't lack for things to speak. We are even excited to talk a little bit about Shark Week.
And heading to week 6, the CFL is getting intense, but a bunch of QBs injured. These losses, dude, are immense.
Yeah, they're going to have an effect on those teams. So saddle up your Broncos. We ain't spitting no bull. We are 300-pound poets, and our plates are always full. What's the worst thing you've ever eaten at Stampede, Nasty?
You know, I haven't even gone there. To be honest, I never went there to try like the deep fried scorpions or anything like that. And to be honest with you, I haven't been on the grounds for probably almost like 10 years.
So you don't hit the Stampede when are you that
You
guy
know,
that gets out of town when it comes to
I
town?
am. For me, it was from the time I think it was back in 2013, 2014 when we discovered trailer camping, and I mean that's just such a prime weekend to get out of town. In fact, a lot of times we would get out for 2 weeks, right? From July 1st right till the end of, for 2 weeks till kind of the end of Stampede. I miss it though. I'm excited about it. And I'm actually kind of feeling a little bit bad because it means that my boys also haven't experienced this in their little kids, and it's something you gotta see.
Yeah, you know what? I take the kids out. I've taken the kids out in the past. Stampeders. When we played for the Stamps, the week of Stampede, the Stamps are always scheduled on the road, and then maybe a bye week, like was the case this
Yeah,
year. They played on the road in Montreal because they don't want them around for Stampede. They use McMahon Stadium, actually, and that's something we'll talk about later. But they use McMahon Stadium to park the RVs that drive up from the States and all that. Although it was very empty today, which I thought was weird. But so the Stamps were always on the road, but I always had the ability to take the boys, took them a couple of times when they're younger. As the kids got older, and there was a couple of times, I obviously have split custody with my kids, and with my schedule in the fire department, I was able to get out to some different concerts and events and rodeos.
yeah,
And it truly, like our line in the poem, it has something for everyone. On my Instagram feed yesterday, there was country acts side by side with who was in town. Flo Rida was there yesterday.
Did you know who my wife just helped onto a plane? This is going back to Saturday night. Melanie Christome, also known as Mel C.
Oh,
from the Spice Girls. So she was in town on Friday and flew out Saturday. And my wife, they had her kind of personally make sure she got on the plane without any harassment. So yeah, it's kind of amazing. A big time for Calgary, right? Everybody comes
big time, lots of employment, lots of income, lots of economy. In fact, my 15-year-old son last night at 11 o'clock, I got him a gig to work, not at Stampede, but he's working at the craft beer market, bussing tables because they absolutely are slammed for work. So it's a great time. There's something for everyone. If you want to make money, you can make money. You want to leave town and Airbnb your spot, you will make a lot of money. You want to stick around and have fun. You want to take your kids to Callaway Park while everyone's at Stampede grounds. You'll have the run of the ride. So there's a lot going on. We'll talk a little bit more about Stampede later.
Yeah, well, you know what? Right now we got some Fast and Furious CFL talk going on right now too, because
let's hit it.
CFL does not shut down for the Stampede. Like you said, they always sent us out of town just to keep us out of trouble because too many guys have a tendency to get arrested when big stuff is going on.
Did you say arrested?
Well, it's happened before, right?
I think it's more the partying. I don't know if we're worried about the guys getting arrested. But
you know what? I spent more years with the Riders than you did, and those big weekends can always be a little bit questionable. But
it definitely is a strategy to get the Stamps out of town because it's not fair. It's not fair when the city shuts down and you got these young guys that come out of training camp. They're from all over, and all of a sudden, let's be real. You see all the girls in their cowboy hats, their short Daisy Dukes, and you're at practice and you're like, man, I just want to hang out. And then they go to the parties and the bars and it's nonstop. There's always something, like I said, there's something for everyone at the Calgary Stampede, even our man AC Sports Live.
AC Sports, you got to come down here, AC. You got to check this out, man. The greatest outdoor show on earth.
Ice Cube is coming up this week. Country acts galore. Oh man, it's great. Okay. CFL, Stamps on the road. We talked about it. Let's hit it right away because we did talk about Stamps. They went to Montreal and they were doing okay, Sheldon. They were doing okay.
They were looking incredible. I mean, they had a couple of 2-and-outs to start, but then Jake Mayer got a kick-started. They found a little bit of success on the ground.
Yeah.
And by the end of the first half, they're up 23-12. Tommy had gotten out there. He'd already scored a couple of touchdowns on short yardage runs and whatnot. They were looking like they finally put it all together. Yep. But I'll tell you, Montreal, Chev, they are no joke. They are for real.
They are for Cody Fajardo is for real. Was it Tyson Philpott or Jalen?
Jalen. That's the matchup of the brothers, of course. Twins. Right? But we've got Jalen, who was an absolute stud in college, like his brother was. But yeah, Tyson Philpott. What do you? 106 yards.
134 yards reception, 0 touchdowns, but
134.
and they picked up this other guy, Cole Speaker. I think he was there last year,
He
but
was there last year playoffs.
last year their hero was Austin Mack, and he's in the NFL right now. He signed an NFL deal, and it's like, well, you won the Grey Cup. Everyone's still iffy on the Alouettes, right? Like, put it this way, you still think I'm crazy for having picked them in the Grey Cup. You still think I'm wrong that I picked them.
I think you were wrong for picking them, but you're right, because there's something real magical going there. But that's what it is magic.
But when they lose a couple of guys, you think, you know what? They lose a big guy like Austin Mack. He was a big receiver for them.
Yeah.
And everyone's just filling in. And Cody Fajardo, 35 for 42. But you got to remember where he came from. Him and his head coach, Jason Moss, came off the Saskatchewan a scrap heap. And here they do. They come back at the end of that in that fourth quarter, put up 15 points to come back and beat the Stamps 30-26. Now the Stamps looked okay. Stamps looked okay. Like Jake Mayer was 18 for 20. Actually,
no, it's terrible. He had 106 yards.
No,
it didn't look like that though. I was surprised by that. Right? It was at the end of the game when you look back. And it's like, oh my God, that was absolutely brutal. Tommy Stevens, in fact, added 24 yards. He threw one pass for 24 yards.
You know what?
But they didn't even hit 150.
Because I didn't get to watch the game. I was moving all weekend. As you know, I was in Red Deer moving Brittany. So I didn't get it to watch. I peeked in once. But I'm actually surprised they scored 26 points with 106 yards of offense. I'm assuming that it all came on defense.
Some turnovers. There's some turnovers in the first half that led to it. But what really got me is you look at the good teams and how they use their weapons, right? Like Tyson Philpott is an amazing athlete.
Yeah.
But as a Canadian receiver, a lot of times they kind of put you in a box and they just run these routes. We'll catch you in the zone. Tyson Philpott is demanding the ball, and he's giving him good reason to keep hitting him because he's so dynamic. But when you're watching the running back, Walter Fletcher, so I think he was the big difference makers. Those little things, like, so if I told you that he rushed for 56 yards in the game, would it sound like he would play a major impact? 56 yards.
Not huge. Yeah,
he did it on 5 carries. He averaged 11.2 yards a carry.
Yeah, but then he caught 9 balls for 104 yards.
11.6 yards in the air. Every time he got the ball, he got 11 yards.
And you know what that tells me? That tells me this. You remember in 2005 when the Edmonton Eskimos came to town and we were shutting Ricky Ray down. You remember we were shutting Ricky Ray down? Yep. Deep ball, the corner route to Jason Tucker. Nothing was there. And what did Danny Machocha do? He pulled Ricky Ray, put in Jason Moss. And you remember what they were doing? They dinked and dunked the whole game. Dink.
Yeah.
And that looks like what happened here. When you have your running back, your starting tailback, making 9 receptions for 104 yards, you know that they adjusted the game plan because maybe some of the deep stuff wasn't there early on.
Yeah.
And they took what was there. And that is maturity from Cody Fajardo. He's not forcing it. But then when he did get to unload, you see Tyson Philpott. Again, 12 receptions for 134 yards. Walter Fletcher, we mentioned the running back. And then everyone kind of tails off. You could see that there's not a lot of ball distribution after that. There is a bit. But the majority of it went to Philpott and Fletcher. Two guys.
Yeah.
And together, you know what's funny? Both their production was more than Calgary.
Yeah.
Totally. I actually can't believe they scored 26 points. But Calgary, I believe, on a bye week or going to the bye week this week. I think that's what we've got going into week 6. Are they up this week? Let's see. I don't know. But you know the game.
Hold on, I'll tell you. I got it right here. Where did I have it here?
You had it.
Yeah. No, they're playing the Bombers this week.
So Calgary's
no bye week. No bye week. They've got to figure this out because at times Jake Mayer's looked really, really pretty good.
Yeah.
He looks like he's in control. But you're going to have to start putting together a 4-quarter game. Like he's been better with turnovers. In fact, I think they even won the turnover battle. No, I think he threw a couple picks later in the game.
I just don't like that stat line. 104 yards of offense. I don't like that. That to me feels like going backwards. I don't know what the issue is, but they got to fix it in a hurry. They don't have a bye week to fix it. Sheldon, I want to switch gears. Well, actually, one more thing. Montreal winning that game 30-26. And the news of the game going into that game, we didn't have a chance to talk about it, is Sean Lemon. Sean Lemon's suspension reinstated. The arbitrator ruled that until he has his hearing on, for those of you who don't know, Sean Lemon, number 0 for the Alouettes, defensive end, had a long storied career, Calgary, Edmonton, Toronto. I think he's got 4 or 5 Grey Cups. Great. I love him as a teammate. Great dude. Lemon drops. But he got nailed for gambling on his own games. He did a parlay, and one of the games in that parlay, I don't even know what that means. I think it's he bet on multiple games.
A parlay is multiple bet, and you're not supposed to bet on your own game. But I think
you're not supposed to bet on any CFL games.
Yeah,
but he bet on. Yeah. I think he got caught betting 2 CFL games and then one that he was in. And it didn't really affect the outcome. He got suspended indefinitely. He appealed it, which allowed him to play and help Montreal to a 4-0 record. But last Thursday, the arbitrator ruled that until he has his hearing, he's out. And that's a big loss for them. He's a leader on the field, not just with his play, but also with his persona. So him not being there, suspended, could have been a big distraction for them. And I'm quite impressed that they were able to just rebound, and get out there and do their thing. So I thought that was impressive that they came back. Let's see some of the comments before we hit the game that you and I both got to watch, and that was really nice on Thursday night. The Riders and the
I was thinking the other one, but yeah, for sure.
The Riders in Toronto. Jamin says the Hawk Tua girl is coming to Calgary. Yeah, well, she is, and the Calgary Stampede. What else we got? Craig Hannum, he's here in Calgary. It's second trip to Calgary. He's enjoying the Stampede.
Second trip in like 3 months. That's awesome. And Jamin right there. James offering to make him his famous barbecue burnt ends, his brisket burnt ends. So,
well, I hope I get that offer too, because tomorrow I'm going for margaritas with Craig.
Jamin, fire up that barbecue. We're gonna have to make this happen.
And we might have to take an Uber there after our margaritas. But Craig Hannum, just to kind of circle that wagon, pardon the pun, on Stampede Week. But Craig Hannum came up for a men's mental health movie night. We got a lot of connections for him to do the great work he's doing in men's health as suicide prevention and intervention. I believe this week he's doing some suicide prevention and intervention for rodeo athletes. And we'll talk to Darryl McAvena after the break about that. But we got Craig's up there for that. He's meeting some firefighter pensioners. He's got a few things on the go. And it seems like he's going to have to get a second home here in Calgary, because it seems like there's a lot of work.
Yeah, I'm seeing another trend here too. So Craig Hannum is talking barbecue with Jamin. They're discussing AC repair, my air conditioning repair with Ernie Regas, who Ernie's the man. We're I think most of you guys know Ernie. I'm blessed to have him as my father-in-law. And we keep talking. We've got to get these shirts printed up that says, if Ernie can't fix it, we're all screwed. So he was the first call that we made. But I think this time I'm going to leave it to get a quick service. And if they can't fix it, Ernie's the man for sure.
Yeah, Ernie's the man. And Bruno's right. The Lions are for real. So Sheldon, this is our show. Yeah, we could do whatever we want. You want to take a break now? Do our bring Darryl in next segment? And
I think we'll bring Darryl in next. I got a bunch of things though. Like, this is the crazy thing about the CFL year. You've got the Alouettes at 5-0. You've got the Riders at 4-0. Asking, can they be 5-0 after next week? The Lions are 4-1. And then you've got some teams that haven't won any games. The Bombers are 1-4. Elks are 0-4.
Hamilton 0-5.
Hamilton 0-5. So there's some, but not all the undefeated teams are that spectacular, and not all the winless teams look that bad. So I think we're going to take a break on that, guys. And I want you to think back on some of these games. We're going to talk about that more in the third, but right now we are going to go to break. When we come back, let's bring on Darryl McAvena. I want to talk to a true cowboy, get his opinion on, is it okay for guys like you and me to wear hats and boots? Or if we're just better off in our Daisy Dukes and running shoes. But guys, we've got all that and more coming back right next on The Ride.
Performance Freight Management is a global logistic freight shipping company that will handle the entire shipping process for any package to any country. Whether it be a simple truck shipment from your office to Toronto or your company importing generators from China, PFM Freight handles it all. We have the expertise and technology to handle any shipping requirements. Skip the guesswork and let us take the shipping pain off your plate.
Well, be sure to like and subscribe to all our social medias at Chevy and Nasty. We're Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Our show is running live tonight on YouTube. You can stream it. It's going to be available tomorrow pretty soon. With the help of our intrepid producer, Trey, we're slowly building things together. I don't know if you noticed, but tonight we got the last week we had the poetry music. Tonight we got the intro countdown and we got the commercials so Sheldon could go pee and we're no longer going to be sponsored by the pens.
Or in this case, stick my head in the freezer for 30 seconds because that was awesome.
So it's coming together. We're also going to be available. There he is, squirting himself. We're also going to be available on audio podcasts. So where you download your audio podcast, and I don't know how we're going to do that. Are we just going to download whatever episode we land on, and that like Spotify, we don't have any other episodes on there, but we'll just start with
episode 33,
33, 34.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. We'll figure it out. But you know what? It's coming together. You saw the commercial there for Performance Freight Management, which that is Darryl McAvena's company. He's been sponsoring us for the last number of months and been supporting us, helping us out. And with that, maybe let's get Darryl on. Trace, is Darryl on to join us on the ride? Oh, there he is.
There we go.
See, that's a real cowboy. Like, that is a real cowboy. You look at that hat. Before the show, when I saw you there, I was gonna wear my cowboy hat with my Jaws shirt because it was like I figured Stampede and Shark Week. I was like, I can't rock it the way you do. So I just went with the hat backwards. Sheldon had that question before. Would it be okay for, like, I'm a total city slicker. Is it okay for me to wear a cowboy hat for 1 week in the year?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's the tradition, Calgary tradition, man. It's awesome. I love seeing people out there with cowboy hats on, boots. And, even today we were at the Stampede and one of my buddies is like, is it okay? Like if I wear this hat? And I'm like, it's a Stampede, man. That's when you got to dress up. Do it. Everyone's doing it. It's cool.
So of course, like the Stampede is really about celebrating the history of Alberta and Calgary and it, which was built on cattle back in the day. What do you find most like awesome about the Stampede when you think about it? Because you've obviously, I don't know all your story, but I'm assuming you grew up in the country riding horses. You grew up doing all that work. What does it mean to you to see that just celebrated on such a huge level?
Yeah, I just find that, to continue that history from the early 1900s, especially with the Calgary Stampede being such a resourceful town, oil and gas, but to go back to the tradition and the history. And I mean, Pete Knight, a good friend of mine, it was his great uncle. And, to know that guy was riding in the early 1900s, I think it was like 1922. Wow. And we're still seeing the Stampede at the same level. I mean, obviously it's changed, but still at the same level of all those events. And I mean, for the Calgary Stampede to continue that tradition, and yeah, there's lots of entertainment around it. And you obviously have to evolve to have the backwards baseball cap guys there because that's the tradition too. But yeah, it's so cool. And, just to see the horses, getting herded in every night for each performance, it's pretty majestic because, as there's a lot of animals down at Stampede and, it's not only the athletes, it's the animals that, they hold that tradition as well. So it's pretty cool to see.
And, I'm a big supporter of the Stampede. We talked early on, like different phases of life, different chapters. I've done different things. I've done the get out of town. I think last year I went to Mexico during Stampede because it was the only time I could. And a few years ago, I caught the rodeos and a few concerts. This year, I'm going down tomorrow on the grounds to do some work for the fire department in my Stampede outfit. So I've had different perspectives. What's your favorite thing besides the rodeo? Obviously, your roots are in rodeo. Which is interesting too, because you were a city slicker as well. You grew up in the city of Calgary, but the summers you worked on your uncle's ranch, and that's how you got into rodeo, correct? So yeah. I guess before we get into that, what's your favorite thing besides the rodeo? And then we'll get into your rodeo story.
Well, I hate to say, it's still kind of in that tradition, but the chuck wagons are incredible. Stampede is, you can't go to the Stampede without seeing the chuck wagons. And,
yes.
And, yeah, what a draw. I mean, I sent a video there to a few guys last night, but I mean, half mile of hell, they call it, right? And, you got a team of horses, 4 horses running down a half-mile track, going 30 miles an hour, and anything can happen. But yeah, chuck wagons are amazing, and to back that up, I mean, to get 100 and some thousand people to come in those gates at the Calgary Stampede every year, it's incredible. You guys know what it's like, 10 days of straight partying, right? Like they just love to
it's
party.
a celebration for sure.
Yeah.
But I think even with the chucks, if you've ever had a chance to like be down at track level while the races are going on, and you just feel the power of those horses, and you see the strain and the the athletic ability and what it takes to control and steer those horses and the team working together, it's awesome. But you feel that pounding through your chest, even from 50 yards away. I mean, you're just taken over by the sheer amount of power coming off of that track. It's something you can't know until you experience it firsthand. And the chucks are like an obvious draw for an obvious reason, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, and you got 4 horses going 30 miles an hour, and then you got a driver that's got to, basically rein them back, control them. I mean, it's intense. And I mean, it doesn't matter if you've never seen it before. There's been thousands of people that I've gone to with, the chuck wagons. Every time I go there, between that and the rodeo, they're completely amazed by the animals. Like, it's just unbelievable to know.
I've been a few times, and some of the most memorable times I've been was actually when the weather was terrible in the mud, and you got Kelly up front, and he's riding, he's got mud all over his face, and those historic photos where you just see him, and it's just the mud. You could like literally count the dots in some of those pictures, and it's so captivating, and it's so amazing. And really, I had no exposure to that at all growing up. Rodeo is not something you saw in Montreal. You didn't see it really in Quebec. And I really got to experience it out here. And I'm captivated by it. I love country music, and I didn't have country music. Like, the Western culture is something that I really appreciate. And I'm sure a lot of people do, because like you said, like, the people coming here and filling up the stands aren't necessarily people from Calgary. They're coming from all over the world. Craig Hannum said it. The Stampede is the largest outdoor show globally.
Do you know what, Chev, though? And Darryl, I want you to speak to this a little bit. It's not just a bunch of cowboys sitting around saying, hey, what can we do? That's awesome. Like football or hockey or other sports involved. These are all directly linked to the skills that it took to run those big herds of cattle. Right, the chuck wagon race is okay. How quickly can the cows are escaping? There's something we got to go do. How quickly can we get our camp shut down and get off and take care of business? That's why they still use the hot stove they got to throw in the back, right?
Well, absolutely. They stick to the heritage and the history of it, right? And that's the coolest part. And most of the time, someone's going to the rodeo with you or the chuck wagons, and they're explaining that to you, going, that's part of history, right? You're tie down roping, you're bringing down a calf, you're gonna tie him, flank him, and then you're going to, brand him, right? Give him his vaccinations. I mean, they just turned it into a cool traditional sport. And it's incredible. I mean, the excitement, and, nowadays you look at the way sport evolves. I mean, the best part of, watching any type of sporting event is to see someone win and win, some money. The difference is when you rodeo, you actually have to pay to get there. And you don't always win, so you're not getting a full-time check. You're not getting paid down the road. You have to try and find sponsors. So it's a true man's work in sport, right? And it's a little different than CFL, NFL. I mean, you're not getting a salary.
But I want to take it down a little bit of a darker road, and then we'll bring it back. But the darker road. We talked about having Craig Hannum up here. I know you had a big hand in bringing him back for Stampede because of your connection to the athletes, not just the performance and not just the show, but actually the athletes, like you said, that work in the background, that are, some of them starving to get here, so they have that chance to win that money to maybe pay for the farm or pay for more training, pay for their animals. What is that correlation? We talk about mental health. What's going on with these athletes? Because obviously these tough cowboys that live in tough conditions, like Sheldon said, it harkens back to the old days. But how important is it for these athletes to pay attention to their mental health and to some of the things that we talk about often on this show? Because again, I don't know enough about it, but I know that if Craig's up here and you're asking up here, there's definitely a need.
Yeah, like I said right off the bat, I mean, financially, right? So if you don't get paid and you're trying to go down the road, you could be going from, Oregon to Alberta to hit a rodeo, try and make Calgary. That can be, a good percentage just on your own dime. So financially, the stress level of trying to make sure you have enough money to get down the road. Are you feeding yourself properly? A couple cheeseburgers here and there, maybe, you might get through the day. But then you might be leaving family at home, right? Because it's tough enough trying to travel down the road, whether you're, a rough stock event guy like a bull rider or bareback or saddle bronc rider. You don't have to haul horses, so you can jump in with a few guys, usually not with your wife and kids. If you're hauling horses, it's a tougher gig too. You got a lot more expenses. So the stress level's on the financial level, but then you're leaving family behind, and they're long, long drives. You're going probably, after a rodeo ends, say, 8-9 o'clock, you jump in the truck and you head down to the next one. It could be an 8-9 hour drive. I've gone from Coeur d'Alene night days that ends at 9 o'clock, and then I drive all the way the next day to Halkirk, Alberta, just to get to a bull riding. And I might have had one cheeseburger that night, and I had to stay awake the whole time because I drove to Coeur d'Alene with a bunch of guys that were headed continuing south.
Wow.
I wanted to get back to Alberta for this bull run. That's stressful. And sometimes you don't take care of fitness or your nutrition, and you could be down to your last dime. I've been rodeoing when I had
and your body's not always feeling and your body's feeling it, right? The wear and tear.
Yeah, it's fatigue. So then you're testing your mental capacity every time you get on a 2,000-pound bull. That could kill you.
Yeah. Well, I've been following one of my my former CFL teammates. Played for Montreal, played with me in Saskatchewan. Bryn Roy, you know him well. He's made the transition from football to rodeo. I believe he's got his dad's a horse farmer, if I'm not mistaken, a rancher. But yeah, he's doing is it cattle roping and
steer wrestling.
Steer wrestling. That's right. Steer wrestling.
Like bulldogging.
Yeah, that's right. And I've been following Mosley Proud. That's right. Bryn Roy. But he's doing football camps to make ends meet. He's running horses north and south with his dad, and I follow him, and it's been a grind, but he's doing it because he loves it, right? And I think that's where the link is when Sheldon and I talk about CFL and what you're talking about rodeo. You got to do it because you love it first and foremost, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask you. Let me ask you this, and so I didn't realize you were actually growing up in the city, but had your obviously your ranch roots. At what point was it in your life that you said, you know what, getting on that bull is a good idea? Like what's the thought process for a young guy? What's the draw to that?
Well, I was hanging around a lot of rodeo guys, and at the time I was on the wrestling team at the University of Calgary, and it didn't make a lot of money. And I was, we didn't have a lot of, as Chevy would probably know, the University of Calgary wrestling team didn't have a great reputation. So I decided one day to go to they had a intercollegiate rodeo association. I'm like, man, I got to try this. So I thought, hey, I'm going to go try their rough stock night in Olds. Got on a practice bull, rode my first bull, and I'm like, hey, man, this is pretty easy. And then, a few months down the road, it was pretty tough, and in 1995, I busted my face up and got reconstructive surgery, and it got a lot tougher.
So you
I saw that picture.
Yeah, you sent us that picture before the show. Now we can't get it up on the air tonight, but I didn't realize that. And how long were you out, first of all? Because that you required full reconstructive surgery on your face. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it was the long and short of it. So I got on a bull, and they call it when you get jerked down. So I was trying to reach for the front end with the biomechanics. When a bull comes up, you want to break at the hips and drive to the front end. So when I was driving to the front end, that bull snapped his head and smashed my nose. Ooh. And thankfully I was a wrestler because I had no bone left in my nose. But if I did have a bone in my nose, it would have went right through my brain and I would have been dead on the spot.
God.
Yeah.
But thankfully I had no cartilage there or nothing. So it was just sloppy. And so I had to go get rushed to the Strathmore hospital at the time. and this is where my, my passion for helping out the Canadian Pro Rodeo Sports Medicine team is. At that time, there was no one there. And so they had to call an ambulance in, plus another ambulance in, so that they'd have an ambulance at the rodeo while they pulled me away and took me to Strathmore.
Yeah.
And, so I was out for, ironically, I was only out for 4 weeks.
Wow.
Because I decided, my doctor said, the only way you're going to ride is you got to put a hockey helmet on. Otherwise, you're going to hurt your eye sockets. I was going to bust my eye sockets because I just had small fractures. And so I decided, I love this game, man. This is a great sport. I love it. It's such an adrenaline rush. It's like, when you're in NASCAR, you're going 200 some miles an hour. It's probably better than that. And I had to get back into it. So I put a helmet on.
Now, Darryl, I'm not the biggest rodeo guys, and I mentioned that, but I do watch once in a while, and I see a lot of helmets. Not everyone's wearing helmets these days, but a lot of guys, I think not everyone's wearing, but I see lots of guys wearing helmets. How common was that when you went through it?
There was zero wearing them, and it was
really.
I was the first bull rider in Canada to wear one permanently. So to either put a mask on or have a helmet. And if you talk about mental health, I mean, the stigma was wear the cowboy hat. If you don't wear the cowboy hat, you're not a true cowboy. So I had to go through, some real psychological safety dynamics.
For sure.
I'd be standing at the urinal, after the beer gardens having a pee, and the guy's like, aren't you the guy wearing the helmet? You're not a cowboy, and so I had to deal with that.
Step on a bull, buddy.
And that's but that's real. I don't know if the word's trauma, but maybe Craig can correct me. But when you're trying to make your way with all those conditions that you had already mentioned, no financial certainty, traveling, and you're making a choice to do something that you may be ridiculed for. We talk about it when football with these Guardian helmets. We talked about it a few weeks ago where the CFL is allowing guys to wear these Guardian helmets that have been proven to reduce the risk of concussion. But who's going to be the first? We talked about it with the NHL. Who's going to be the first guy to cover up their lovely locks and be, and wear that full face mask, right? And that's a really interesting perspective because here you are, the only one in Canada. And you know that every time you step on that bull, people aren't watching you as the bull rider. They're watching you as the bull rider with the hockey helmet. And that I can imagine that you went through some dark days questioning your involvement in the sport. I can only imagine.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was pulling on your strings every day when you put your chaps on and your boots and your spurs. And at the time, we started wearing protective vests as well. So that was the same problem. So I had the vest on. I had the helmet on, so I was fully geared. Now, 98% of the cowboys wear helmets, and 100% of them wear the vest, right?
Yeah.
So it just evolved, but it was a challenge, and that's where trying to educate, and the Canadian Pro Rodeo Sports Medicine team is really good at that. And a good friend of mine that's the director of that organization, Brandon Tomei, he's really trying to get out there and educate these bull riders and these rough stock event guys and these timed event guys all about the pre and post care, for rodeo, right? Because it's not really, it's history, and it's not the sport like football where you get a full team, right? They do now, and that's this, the sports med team. And so, nowadays they're trying to educate all these athletes to say, you've got to have some mobility training, you got to train. You have physically got to train, mentally you got to train, concussion protocol, all right? It's all getting involved, and it's taken some time, but that's why we brought Craig Hannum up here to do some resiliency training and crisis training. So we brought him up to meet with the team that I'm working with. I sit on the board of directors with the Canadian Pro Rodeo Sports Med team, and thought, we can get him up here and just get him a feel of what's going on and how we operate. And it's a tradition, right? It's a history. So we got to kind of ease ourselves into it. But I think it's a good opportunity there as well with Craig. And, it's I think with rodeo, it's all John Wayne, right? You got to be a cowboy. You got to be tough. You can't cry. You can't wear a helmet. You can't wear a vest. And that's where that stigma slides in. And, I was right at the face of it, no pun intended, but, I think that's the greatest part about rodeo. It's got some history, but it's evolving and changing, as you'll see.
But I do think you see that in many. I guess you know what we always talk about. We're a show for guys, right? You know, this is a campfire talk, right? It's a road trip. It's not a bar stool. This is a good campfire talk. And you know, think about all male dominated environments you've been in. Football locker room, firefighting, you know, which is mostly male dominated. Rodeo, military.
Yeah.
You know, there's that. Again, we talk about it. Well, are they getting soft? You know, oh, pretty soon it's going to be, you know, when you talk about football and the rule changes to the quarterback, oh, pretty soon it's going to be two-hand touch. They're not as tough as us. And you talk about the fire department, you know, whether it's resilience training for PTSD or even the advancements in protocol for going into homes on fire. In the old days, like, they used to call them smoke eaters, right? The guy that goes in with his SCBA on, he was looked at as weak. Whereas now over time, things have changed, right? And you're like, well, presumptive cancers in the fire service are huge because of the smoke eaters. The guys with the CTE is the guys that we're hitting with the heads. You know, so it seems like in male dominated professions and environment, we have a real hard time with change that could actually help us. Because it seems that change makes or has a stigma of making us softer. And I think that could be further from the truth, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the biggest thing, right? But as soon as you decide to make the change, there's always something good at it, right? You know, and you guys know Brett, you know, chase the good, right? So if you're looking at the good and focusing on the good, you'll see something that's going to be a benefit to you. But if you hold that tradition and, you know, in the early 1900s when the Calgary Stampede still, you know, just started, that may have been okay then, but it's going to change and you have to go with the change. And as you see in rodeo, I mean, it's a tough sport. You know, they say it's the toughest sport on dirt. Well, it is. And to not go through change though, to improve and make your body better, make your ground better, you know, work in the ground. They change the equipment now and they're doing different things for barrel racers and calf ropers and all that. It's a different age, but you know, nowadays I think the most important thing with rodeo athletes is really the mental game. I think if you can, you know, if you got to get on the road and ride, you know, 4 or 5 bulls in a 3-day period, and you got to travel 300-400 miles every day, you know, there's a lot of stress on you. And I think that's what a lot of the team members are doing on the ground that are supporting the pro rodeo athletes. But you got to remember, you know, it's still a party. Some of these guys think they're rock stars, right? So they'll
for sure
Cabaret and, you know, hang out at the bar, and, you know, there's lots of things that, you know, come into play with it too, because you got the buckle bunnies, you know, chasing and waiting for the Cowboys to, you know, to finish up and the party starts, right? So
buckle bunnies. I never heard that before. The buckle bunnies.
Hey, you got your pucks, you got your buckle bunnies.
Yeah, Sheldon, do you have a question, follow-up? Because I've got one or two before we let Darryl go.
I do, and I think we're just about out of time on this. So Darryl, I'd love to get you on here and talk more about the injury, and I'd really like to talk about the performance aspect of what does it take to get onto that bull? Because I know when you're talking about 3 bulls in 4 nights, you're not always feeling at your optimum, but that is one animal that you've got to be at your best for. But the other thing that came up in the Stampede this year, as it comes up every year, and I think that's where we get a lot of disconnect between people that were raised on farms and with animals and that weren't. 3 animals had to be euthanized already during the Stampede. And I know there's a lot of criticism and a lot of, focus on that. And I think there should be. Are we doing our best for these animals? Or are we treating them as just expendable props? And as a guy that grew up in the rodeo and around horses and other animals, maybe you can just talk to us a little bit about the mindset of how we treat these animals.
Yeah, you know, when it comes to rodeo, I mean, we demonstrated it today. Like, you know, there's those rodeo animal athletes down there that, you know, they're traveling just like the Cowboys are. But I'll be honest with you, they get treated better than the Cowboys. Like some of these bulls and these horses, they're sent to the rodeo in a separate trailer because they're one of the high performance performers. They're embedded shavings. They get high performance nutrition diets and supplements. And even at my ranch, like my wife and I mean, we do the same thing. Like our goal here is the horses get fed before we do, right? And I'm telling you, on the grounds, that happens 100%. There's a vet team on the grounds that are doing complete checks, especially in this heat, making sure hydration, making sure they got feed, proper bedding, proper shade. So the animal care down at the rodeo grounds and between transport and that, I mean, it's unbelievable. And these animals are actually exercised. They're trained to do what they do. They love what they do. They hear the crack of the chute open. They're fully trained. They know what to do. The whole stigma around this, the flanks tied around the bull's balls and it hurts them and all that stuff. I mean, you could just, barely put the flank strap on the back of the bull that makes them buck. And it's just a tickle for most of these bulls. It's just the motion of feeling that. And if you took, some people that were questioning, the care, you'd be surprised. Like they get top-notch care, and it doesn't matter where they go. I mean, the first to get fed, the last to get fed at the end of the night, and everyone's focused on them. And that's why they're so sleek and they look amazing. Their muscles, they're developed. It's incredible. So I would never question the care.
I was listening to the radio today while I was driving, and they had some lady on talking about, and obviously she represents, one of those organizations that's all for the animals' rights, and they don't eat animals and all that stuff, right? And she was trying to make the argument that people don't even care about the rodeo anymore. And I think 53,000 people walking in on the first weekend would say otherwise. It's a way of life out here, and it's a showcase of that way of life. And it's not to say, like you said, it's not that we don't care about the animals, but it's part of the way of life. When we play football, there's college athletes putting it out there for football. And they get injured, they get hurt, some of them die, right? And I know the animals don't necessarily have that choice, but it was part of the way of life. Last week we talked about that movie Horizon with Kevin Costner, and just kind of hearkening back to that. That's how this world was made. That's how we got here. That's how we forged this land. That's
how you fed the people as the West was being developed.
Yeah. Right? And this is a reminder. And if you don't remind yourself of the traditions, you're going to forget them. So I'm again, being a person who didn't grow up in this, being a person who was, who, it was a shock the first time I saw guys throwing a stove in the back of a chuck wagon or a guy jumping on a bull. I was like, well, that's weird. But you know what? It makes sense, because that's what this culture is. And I think to showcase that, I did hear that, I don't know if they do it in Stampede, maybe you could clear this up, but even now there is the indigenous race on the wild horses. Has that been adopted at the Calgary Stampede this year? Because I know it's become something that they're doing.
I'm not 100% sure this year, but I think it's like a grandstand event. But I know for sure, like in Strathmore and that's an incredible. If you ever get a chance to watch that, I mean, those horses and those athletes, man, are incredible. Fantastic.
Darryl, speaking of incredible, before we let you go, we want to talk. One, Performance Freight Management is your company. You sponsor us. You do freight and logistics. You also have the Western Lifestyle Foundation. We talked about these rodeo athletes that don't have money to get things started. You have a scholarship fund for these rodeo athletes to get themselves going, right? What else you doing? Because I mean, you do so much. I can't even keep track, actually. So what have you got going on these days besides sponsoring our silly show and hitting up the Stampede with our buddy Craig Hannon?
Yeah, I got a couple young youth individual rodeo contestants that are doing really well. So Brett Gardner and I work together. He's a pro rodeo announcer. You'll see him at the Calgary Stampede. He's the main
friend of the shows.
Yeah, absolutely. He's running the grandstand show, man. It's amazing. So him and I have been working on helping out these youth athletes, making sure that they enjoy the Western lifestyle and get involved with the Western lifestyle. Most of the guys that I know nowadays that work in the Western lifestyle have integrity, morals, ethics, and they're actually really good business people, because they're working on their own all the time. So I want to support that. Even if you don't even stay in it, if you get entrenched in rodeo, it's a family. Like it's a family. So just to share that is incredible. So I'm working on that. I got two guys out there that are doing amazing. These young kids, one's 17 and one's 19. And and so I'm just working with Brett and you guys as well with the mental health movement. We put on a couple events, and plan on trying to do another one in the fall. I obviously that's a big passion of mine, is giving back to men and women in the mental health space. And so we've got lots of big ideas, and just got to get it rolling.
So Darryl, I just got to say thanks, man. It's the first time. You've been a friend of the show for a long time. We did the event with you, but this is the first chance we've got you on the air to talk about this. And I'm just loving the conversations going on in the background right now. Ernie Regas broke an Appaloosa horse when in his younger days, he says, and that's
a Welsh.
Nice.
And a Welsh, and that's a pretty smart horse. I mean, he said it just about broke him.
You get that Welsh.
Yeah, there you go.
Nasty Welsh.
Are they the nasty ones?
They can be, yeah. They can be, yeah. They can be rough.
I don't know if Rob Evans is toying with me, but is wild cow milking a real thing, or is it like?
Yeah, it is.
My goodness!
It used to be at the Stampede. Same thing, tradition, right? If you couldn't.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing.
Oh, that's crazy. Hey, Darryl, thanks so much for joining us tonight, man. That was a lot of fun. Learned a lot, and we're definitely going to get you back on again. And to all you guys, thanks so much for listening so far. Stay tuned. When we come back, I think Chevy and I are going to break down a little bit more on the CFL and really whatever Chevy wants to talk about after that. So stay tuned. We'll be right back with you here on The Ride.
Performance Freight Management is a global logistic freight shipping company that will handle the entire shipping process for any package to any country. Whether it be a simple truck shipment from your office to Toronto or your company importing generators from China, PFM Freight handles it all. We have the expertise and technology to handle any shipping requirements. Skip the guesswork and let us take the shipping pain off your plate.
Hey, he's gone. Welcome back to The Ride with Chevy and Nasty. He always does this to me. We are going to get some depends. If you're joining us tonight, thank you so much. Keep the comments rolling. We love reading it. We love interacting with you. Sheldon spraying himself. Remember, you can like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Facebook. It's at Chevy and Nasty, Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff. And yes, this week, not only was it Stampede week, but it was Shark Week. Now let me preface this. I was not a big shark guy. In fact, this weekend was the first week that I've ever watched Jaws. I was too scared to watch it as a kid.
No,
I was too scared.
Oh, wow.
I hated it. And I was like, and my girlfriend Brittany, who I mention her quite often, she's been all into sharks. Like a few weeks ago, we watched this shark movie on Netflix. It was about this new type of species of shark that basically houses itself in the river in Paris, France. And it was it was funny, kind of dumb. And then we're like, you know what? Let's watch Jaws in preparation for Shark Week. And I watched Jaws for the first time. It was a great movie. It was fun. And then we tried to watch Deep Blue Sea, but we fell asleep after a weekend of moving. But I'm fascinated now. I'm fascinated by the sharks. I got some shark facts for you. Through the magic of Google, you'd think that I'm an expert. But did you know that great white sharks are the largest predatory fish on Earth, Sheldon? They're the largest.
Well, it doesn't surprise me. Right? Because I don't think there's any. There's a movie about the megalodon, but I don't think that's a real shark anymore.
I don't think that's a real shark too. And then they say great white sharks. I didn't know this. I thought they were fish. They're actually warm-blooded. Sharks.
What? No. Really?
Most sharks are cold-blooded, meaning their body temperature is regulated by their environment or how active they are. Great white sharks, on the other hand, are warm-blooded. Warm-blooded creatures like humans can maintain internal body temperature, which means they could get a fever. They might need Sharky Tylenol. What's
That's
more
crazy.
is that they can adjust their body temperature according to their surroundings. They're nuts. And they have the other thing is their blood is toxic. So one of the most obscure great white shark facts is that they have highly toxic blood. They're like the creature in Aliens. It's acid. No, it's not acid.
That's
But,
just to make sure they stay at the top of the food chain, right? So
But
nothing
res-
can eat it.
but research shows that their blood contains extremely high levels of mercury and arsenic, which other animals simply wouldn't be able to tolerate. This. Despite this, great whites don't show any symptoms of heavy metal blood poisoning. They're natural born hunters. As soon as they are born, they're already prepared to fend for themselves. They're nuts. They
there you go.
they start off
great.
as like, and they have one. The only animal that great whites are scared of is the orca or killer whales.
Yeah.
So they and then there's a few other facts. Nothing that I care to share. But
Well, Rob Evans is writing in saying tiger sharks were his favorite. And for me, like I think great whites are the scariest, but even bull sharks, bull sharks are now swimming upstream from oceans into fresh water. And they're like attacking people in different parts of the world in rivers, in murky rivers. They love that. Sharks are like one of the ultimate predators. They've been around for millions of years.
Yeah, and Rob also points out the Jaws Lego set is coming out August 1st. I might get that one for Brittany. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
And we got a new listener joining us, Martin Lee. I guess I'm not sure. Do you know Martin?
No, I think I joined in with Darryl here tonight.
Well, welcome to the show. But it says, Darryl, great to see you and hear you tonight. I learned a lot about the rodeo and even about your past experiences, considering I've known you since 2001.
Crazy, eh?
So making connections with guys that may not have known that, and that 23 years they've known each other. So that's awesome.
Hey, I got a question. This is what I wish after you brought up Shark Week, I wish I would have asked Darryl. If somebody found a way to strap onto a great white and to ride it for 8 seconds, would he sign up for that? Because like we used to raise bulls. Bulls are big, massive animals, and these ones that are trained are just they're immense and they're scary. I don't know what I'd rather ride, a great white or a bull. You get the teeth or you get the hooves.
I don't know. I'm not taking either. But speaking about the teeth and the hooves, who got the teeth and who got the hooves in the CFL this week? We talked about the Riders playing the Argonauts, 2 teams. I mean, the Argonauts have a young quarterback with 6 games experience, and the Riders go into it with a quarterback with no games, maybe 1 game experience, Shea Patterson.
Yeah.
We both watched that game. It's kind of a dud of a game, but somehow they each put up about 23, 30 points for the Riders, and the Riders escaped from the win. Were you impressed? I was impressed with the Riders defense. I was impressed with that. I don't know if Shea Patterson is
they still gave up 26, but you know what I saw in that game? It was that you saw 2 teams that were fighting for their quarterbacks. I mean, the balls weren't well thrown or well placed. But and the Argos, I mean, they had the same problem, right? With slipping my
Cameron
mind.
Dukes.
Cameron Dukes. I don't even respect the guy enough to remember his name.
Oh,
I feel bad. I love watching Cameron Dukes. I honestly love watching him.
Yeah.
But the balls it's kind of a little bit of amateur hour, but the guys went out there and they fought and they competed. So they took missed throws and suicide passes and they came down with balls and they made I thought it was a good game. The fact of the matter is the Riders are 4-0.
Yeah.
And that is including a game with their quarterback was knocked out halfway through and a game with a backup quarterback.
Yeah.
Going there, the way I said they competed for Patterson, they're competing for Corey Mace right now. So whatever Corey Mace is brought to a culture change, which you and I both know, culture is everything in the way that you walk into a game on any given week, right?
Well, we saw it last year with the Montreal Alouettes, right? Nobody gave them credit. Everyone was kind of looking down on them, and that culture is what brought them to the championship game. Now, they had a pretty decent quarterback in Fajardo. People just didn't give him enough credit. And with a head coach that was a quarterback, they were able to make some magic. With Corey Mace now, I thought it was funny. Glenn Suter, I'm not a Glenn Suter hater. I know there's some CFL fans that really get on the TSN talent. I like the TSN talent. I think for the most part, they're all great. They're insightful, but a lot of people get on Glenn Suter. But I have to say this week, he said something to the effect that, he said, Trevor Harris, quarterback for the Saskatchewan Roughriders, he might be back. He should be back in 4 games. He's actually on the 6-game injured list, but they can activate him in 4 games. He's a quick healer. And I was like, Glenn,
Trevor Harris.
I was like, he missed the whole season last year. That's why their coach got fired. That's what.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was funny. So I don't know if Trevor Harris is a quick healer, but he sure looked great early on.
He did.
And unfortunately he's out. Will he be back? We hope so, because I like seeing him at the helm of the Riders. I like good football.
I like good football too, and it's a little concerning now since teams are losing quarterbacks. But the other anomaly, and I talked about this a little bit earlier on, and I want to get your take on this. Is kind of one of those crazy seasons. You've got the undefeated teams or the close to undefeated teams, and then you've got some winless teams at the bottom.
Yeah,
I'm going to run through a few of these records for you, and I want to get your opinion. Which one surprises you the most? That the Alouettes are 5-0, coming off of winning a Grey Cup where nobody thought they had a chance.
I did.
The Riders are 4-0, and 1.5 of those wins are with a backup quarterback.
That one surprises me. That one surprised me. Between those two, between the 2 undefeateds, is it 2 undefeateds? Yeah, 2 undefeated.
Yeah, 2 undefeated, and then the Lions are 4-1. But
the Riders is the surprise to me. And you bring up the Lions. I saw a headline today: are the Riders the best team in the West? I still don't think so. I think
let me show you. I love what the Riders are doing, and I love this culture change. But when I look at what the Riders have beat so far, week 1 they beat the Elks. And barely, right? But we'll talk about the Elks again here in a second. They beat the Ticats twice, and they beat the Argos.
Yeah,
the Argos are no slouch of a team. They're an amazing team, but they're still with a backup quarterback. So I think going into this week when they're playing, I think they're playing the BC Lions this week. That's going to be an amazing. That's going to be an amazing test for them. But let me keep going down to the list. So the Riders are a big surprise to you. The Lions not so much at 4-1. They beat the Stamps, Bombers, Elks, Ticats, lost to the Argos, which is kind of a surprise, but that was week 1.
Yeah.
Vernon Adams is looking amazing.
Yeah, not just Vernon Adams, that receiver, the tall kid, Canadian kid. Geez, what's his name? I gotta give a shout out to him because he's like 6.
You're not talking Dembski. Who are you talking about? Who's
no for BC?
Jamie, help us out.
No. He's right here. It's Justin McInnes. 10 receptions, 144 yards last game, 2 touchdowns. He got that in the first half.
I don't know if he got anything after that, but
well, then they just triple covered him. So he went to Alexander Hollins, who got 6 for 6, 116 yards. Vernon Adams Jr. is playing fantastic football. 26 for 36 last game, 383 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 in
321 at the half, dude. It was 321 at the half. I was half expecting and hoping to see like one of those games, like, dude, he's on track for 700 yards, 650 yards. But what changes at halftime, right? You know what's going to change. But that was exciting to watch.
But
I'm going to bring it back to a couple of other anomalies this week, though, because we're already in overtime. For those of you guys,
overtime. We got overtime.
So out of those teams, so you got the Owls, the Riders, and the Lions that are all. But then at the bottom of the league, you've got the Bombers that just won their first game, 1-4. You've got the Elks that are 0-4, and you've got Hamilton that's 0-5. Which of those bottom teams surprise you?
The Tiger Cats are surprising me because Bo Levi Mitchell is playing some great football. Just last game he was 32 for 48 at 374 yards. He didn't throw a pick. He threw 3 TDs, but his defense is letting him down. That's the surprising one for me is Hamilton for sure, because with Toronto not having what's his name? The quarterback we already forgot about. Chad Kelly. Yeah. And with Ottawa getting off to a slow start, you'd think that Hamilton was poised to make an early move. And Bo has been playing well enough to give him that move, but his receivers are dropping balls. Bruno said it early in the show. He needs to get some receivers that can catch, and his defense has been letting him down. So to me, that's the biggest surprise. Edmonton is right where I thought they would be. I think they're actually playing better than I expected. Like McLeod Bethel Thompson is impressing me. but I figured that's about where they would be. I think honestly, my biggest surprise, if I'm looking at all the teams, my biggest surprise is the Rough Riders at 4-0. I have to say that at 4-0, especially this last game going against a really good Toronto team, winning that game, coming up big. Their defense showed up. That's my biggest surprise. Are they the best team in the West? I can't say that. I do believe that BC is stronger. Are they the best team in the league? No, because Montreal trumps all of them. It's like the shark. Montreal's the shark in the water. They got no predators. No predators. And I don't know. There's no orca out there that Montreal's afraid of. I got that in. Hey,
I like that. That was good. That was good. So then I'm going to take it to a step further. I'm not sure I'm surprised by the tie cast, but I see some of you guys are. But let's talk about our rival to the north, the Edmonton Elks, for 1 second.
Yeah, let's do it.
They're 0-4. But when you take a look at it, so I went and I actually did a little bit of research on how their season went down. So week 1 of the season, the Riders came out playing some great ball and beat the Elk in Edmonton 29-21. One-score game.
Yeah.
Then they lost the next week to the Owls 23-20.
Yep. Field goal.
Then they lost to the Argos 39-36. And then they lost to the Lions 24-21. Now, so the teams that they're losing to were 4-0, 5-0, 4-1, Argos are 2-2 or whatever, but the Lions are 4-1. Like, are they a bottom feeder of the West, or are they poised to be maybe the second ranked team in the West? Like, can they beat the Riders on another night? I think they can beat. Are they poised right now to start beating some of these middle of the road teams and make the playoffs?
Well, this is what they got coming up. They got Ottawa coming up for the next 2 weeks, and Ottawa is without a quarterback. Yeah, two weeks in a row they got Ottawa, and then who have they got? They got a bye week. No, they're playing Hamilton. So Ottawa, Hamilton, and then they hit Saskatchewan. So by Ottawa, Hamilton, they might figure some things out. And again, McLeod Bethel Thompson,
he's looking good.
He's playing pretty good. Like, if you look at his stats, he's not far off the pack, right? Like, he's fourth. He's thrown for 1,200 yards, just above that. His completion percentage is 71. The only guys that are better than him are Cody Fajardo, Vernon Adams number 1, and Bo Levi Mitchell number 2. So the two winless quarterbacks are in the top 4 with the one quarterback that has 5 wins. So I think they can climb, and it's going to be how long can Saskatchewan sustain this defensive effort if Trevor Harris doesn't come back?
They could sustain it for a long time because Corey Mason's the real deal, and everybody there's dialed in. You can tell they're on the same page. Patterson, he wasn't great, but he wasn't terrible. Are you kidding me?
No, come on. I was sitting on the couch and we were texting.
To be honest, that was the night of the thunderstorm. So we went outside and watched.
You went outside, but I watched and again, not hating on the TSN guys, but they were in it hard for this guy to be successful, and he wasn't nearly as successful as they were talking him up. It's kind of like, honestly, it's kind of like what's going on in Winnipeg. Streveler is not Caleros, and Drew Brown. Drew Brown got injured, and we'll talk about that before I know we're in overtime. But we talking about so many quarterbacks. We mentioned the poem, so we've got Trevor Harris down, Zach Caleros down, Drew Brown down, right? Drew Brown goes to slide, and I don't want to talk about him being down, but the act where we see it time and time again, where a quarterback goes to slide and a defender comes over top, slams his head in the ground, and then the quarterback's done. Now, we talked with Darryl about changes to athlete safety in rodeo, in football. We talked about it in firefighting. Do we need to change that rule altogether? Does there need to be a different way that a quarterback gives himself up so that he can't get hurt? I am definitely not down with it. I saw it in the playoffs last year in the NFL, Josh Allen. You see it with Mahomes a lot of times where they do the fake slide and then guys lay off and then they pick up another 6 yards. I think that fake slide has to be outlawed. It's almost like a dive in soccer.
100% it does. 100%. Because I think the defensive players have done an amazing job at adjusting. You know what it was like when we played. That was free game.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They've done a really good job of changing the rules, but there's two things that quarterbacks do. And the one is the fake slide. That's got to absolutely be, and that should be a 15-yard penalty.
Yeah.
Because it wrecks the integrity of the game and what we're trying to accomplish with that. Because I'm not one of those guys that says, "Oh, quarterback should be free game." I have shudders when I think back to how we used to treat each other on the field. I think you got to protect these guys. The second thing, though, is I think we've got to get to a point where quarterbacks have to give themselves up sooner. And
or a different way of giving themselves like a hand up, like, hey, I'm done. And then because
100, so you stay high. But even then they can start baiting in for penalties and things like that, which I don't think they do because injuries do often follow.
The fake slide,
both hands up might be the way to do it.
The fake slide is the one that you see that really puts defenders in a tough position, because then the next time it's not that time that quarterback gets 5 yards. And then, he's like, oh, well, what a great athletic play by that quarterback, made everyone stop. No, he fake slid, everyone pulled off. And then the next time a quarterback does that, there's going to be one guy that says, screw that, I'm going to hit him. And then you get a situation where quarterbacks get injured. So to protect these guys against themselves, because they're competitors, they don't want to slide. There has to be, I do believe there needs to be a rule change that literally, again, for lack of a better term, bubble wraps those guys so that when they are scrambling, maybe they're only allowed to scramble for 5 yards. Something I
you know what I like about it. The first time I've ever thought about this. Remember how they changed the icing rule in the NHL?
Yes.
I mean, for years you knew you had to do something about it. It was brutal.
It's brutal.
Guys at full speed colliding into the boards, racing for that puck. You're never going to get the guy to stop racing because is crucial and pivotal to the game that you win those one-on-one battles. And the same thing with the quarterback. It's a big difference between coming up 3 yards short, 6 inches short, or making it by a yard.
Yeah.
And guys are going to sacrifice their bodies for that, but it's going to be to the detriment of the game. We have to come up with a new metric for calling that play.
Absolutely. For calling it, because think about this. Week 3 of the CFL season, we were like, wow, the quarterback play in the CFL has been fantastic, the best we've seen. And now we're week 5 and we're down 3 or is it 4? Caleros, Drew Brown, and Trevor Harris, all for different reasons. But this is not a league of quarterbacks. Otherwise, we're going to have games like we saw on Thursday night between the Riders and the Argonauts, where quarterbacks are throwing 4 picks.
Hey, can I ask you this though?
What's that?
So Bombers and Red Blacks. Drew Brown did get knocked out in the second quarter.
Yeah,
but wasn't that a fun game to watch? A CFL game that was all on the ground.
Yeah, Strevler is not the answer in Winnipeg. Good for him. He got 4 years in the NFL. He's the most popular backup running quarterback. Yeah. He was great when they won those couple of Grey Cups that he was there for, and he was in his fur coat and he was just the star of the show. But I don't know how much it's like the Stampeders backup quarterback. I love Tommy Stevens, but I haven't seen him throw a pass.
Dude, hey, tell me this. Tommy Stevens, tell me he doesn't have the best job in the CFL.
Yes. He's
for the Calgary Stampeders. He's a rock star. All he does is goes on there and gets first downs and touchdowns. And in fact, big. He's a big dude. He's built for it. He doesn't even look like a quarterback. The guy is 6'5", 240 plus.
He's great for what he does. But if Jake Mayer, who's not playing his greatest this last game, if Jake Mayer goes down, they haven't done anything to develop him. And it's the same for Strevler in Winnipeg. You're going to be running. It's the same for dude in Ottawa that they put in. What was his name? Not Dakota Prukop. He was in last game, and he's the running guy. He just ran all day long. What's his name?
I was reading comments. What's the question?
The quarterback in Ottawa, who he was in last year. No. After Drew Brown went down.
After Drew Brown came in.
What's his name? He played last year when Masoli got hurt. Dustin Crum.
Yeah, Crum.
So you're going to get all these guys that can run it. Look at Edmonton last year. Trey Ford. They wanted him to be the answer to the Canadian quarterback. He did such a good job for what he had. And look, we haven't even heard from him this year. They've probably done so many TSN promo things, those message boards and video boards, and he hasn't even seen the field. And I don't think he will. Because that type of quarterback, it just doesn't last in the CFL. You got to be a runner. You got to be a runner to be successful. The best CFL quarterbacks, guys like Matt Dunnigan, Tracy Ham, Doug Flutie, all those guys. But you can't just be a runner. You got to be able to sling it. And those guys like Caleros, those guys like Trevor Harris. Trevor Harris was able to do it on his feet. Bo Levi was able to do it on his feet. Fajardo, they had the right mix. But a lot of the backups in the league are just runners, and they haven't had a chance to sling it.
Yeah. No, I agree. And that's what worries about me with the USF or the UFL now in full swing too, because it is watering it down. We're going to have to really focus on developing our quarterbacks. But you know what? Maybe that does open the door to the Canadian quarterback. You know,
I don't know. I don't
know if I believe that coming out of my mouth either.
Yeah,
but
the last one that had a shot was Buckley. We still got Daryl Eason playing in the Alberta Football League, and he was the last great Canadian quarterback. But yeah, no, I just think you have that
he wasn't the last great quarterback. The last great quarterback just signed with the where's what's his name?
Nathan Rourke.
Nathan Rourke. Where's he signed?
He's gosh, where is he now? He went from Jacksonville to the Patriots. He's with the Giants. He's with the Giants. So hopefully he gets a shot this year. But yeah, he went to American school. But I'm talking about a kid from CIS. I mean, the last guy was
Daryl Eason.
Not Daryl. Buckley, Andrew Buckley with the Stamps, and he got some playing time. But look, everyone says, well, like when he had his chance on that goal line in the Grey Cup, they're like, oh, we should have given it to Bo, right? Everyone says that. If it was Bo, we would have thrown it. But yeah, I think there's definitely a lack of development. I was really hopeful for the start of the season. Every team had a good quarterback. Every game was almost finished within a field goal because the quarterback play was so good. And now with guys getting hurt, that's where we're seeing the drop off. And I hate that. It's been the eternal problem for the CFL. Maybe they got to do something, like the NBA does this league, the developmental league. Like they kind of go all year round and they do stuff to develop these guys. And I don't know if it's throw them in arena football, because a lot of the guys that play in arena football are quite successful when they come up here because the reads are a lot faster. And it's kind of like the CFL where you got to get.
I got something for you. Maybe throw them into the Olympic. Build that Olympic program.
Yeah,
the flag program. Get them making reads, get them mobile, get them playing that. Is Olympic 6-on-6 or 7-on-7?
Oh, I don't know. We'll have to get an Olympic expert in the next month. But yeah, there definitely is a gap there that needs to be. It's not like the long snapper. The Canadian long snapper, it's kind of like maple syrup. The CFL doesn't have a long snapper on their team. They don't keep a second guy. They know on the street there's some Canadian kid that's learning how to long snap because it's a Canadian position.
Dude, I spent my entire career as the backup long snapper, and thank God I never had to go in because they didn't do much to develop us.
Yeah, but that's the thing. There's definitely a lack. We're always looking for that next great Canadian quarterback. Last year they thought it was Trey Ford. It was there for a little bit, but I remember I was in the elevator last year in Edmonton. We went for it was the unveiling of the. I don't know, it was an alumni thing. And I went there because basically Johnny free shitted a ticket and a hotel stay. So I was like, I'm going. And I was in the elevator with Chris Jones. And I was like, yeah, you guys are doing okay. And this is what he says. He said, yeah, we got a little guy that can run back there. And that's all he said about his quarterback. He was done in that elevator ride. And that was at the beginning of the season last year. Chris Jones was looking for that guy's replacement. So it's tough to make your way as a Canadian quarterback. I know they got a lot of programs to develop these guys. Like they have a quarterback,
but there's nothing that develops you like game experience and quality competition, and that's and good quarterbacks don't grow on trees. And some of the development, maybe that's what we have to work on, is not the development of quarterbacks, but the development of guys that can develop quarterbacks. Yeah. Because until you can really start getting a finger on the pulse, look at all these super talented NCAA coaches. I'm not saying that our CIS or U Sports coaches aren't good. There's a ton of good ones, but have we mastered the art of developing Canadian quarterbacks? I think the answer is no. And rather than saying, oh, you're being critical of us as coaches, I'm not. But I think that's the next thing that we have to start developing is quarterback play, because as you see, in the Canadian game, as is 80% of the game is who you got taking the snap.
Yeah. Hey, Bruno made a great point. Bruno made a great point. I want to ask you this question. This was a great comment. Bruno says, if Bo was a stamp today, we would be, he made a statement. We would be undefeated. Do you agree?
I disagree. Yeah, I disagree. Bo's done some good things, but he's also done some Bo things.
Yep.
Right. I'm not on that bandwagon yet. He still lacks his accuracy at times. Now he comes on and does like an amazing job. He had some great series, and I still see that spark. But I don't. I'll say the same thing about Zach Collaros. Yeah, Bo at his best, sure, the Stamps would be doing a lot better. Collaros at his best would be doing a lot better. But neither of them are at their best right now.
Yeah,
and I know even that game where we're talking about a few drop passes and things like that. Well, if we're honest with ourselves, in week 2, there's a few passes that were just on the fingertips. They weren't great passes. They weren't Bo at his best. Yeah. So. But I'm not worried about him. I do think he's going to, at some point, kind of break out of this. I just don't think this is going to be a playoff bound team. Whereas with Edmonton, I'm not sure I can say that they're not going to be in the playoffs. I think they can just as easily won 3 of their next 4 as they lost. I guess 4 of their last 4 or 5 of their last 5. We'll see what happens.
So let's not look too far ahead 3 weeks. Let's look to next week and make our picks for next week. And then we'll finish off.
And Trey, this is going to be, you're going to be tasked with this from now on, because we're going to have to look back and see what our picks are. I want a running tally, and I know we've got it on record somewhere.
You have them somewhere. You have a notebook there.
No, I've got 3 I've got 2 notebooks and then like 1 piece of scratch paper.
Don't lose that notebook that has the password, because I know one of those has the password to all our stuff. Don't lose that one.
Shoot.
Okay, Montreal, Toronto. Rematch from last year's Eastern semifinal, where everyone thought Toronto was gonna destroy the Alouettes, and the Alouettes came up stopping the Toronto with the Chad Kelly. Does Montreal suffer their first loss, or do they keep rolling?
You call the first one
Montreal.
Yeah, dude, I'm a believer. I am such a believer in what Montreal's got going right now. I don't expect them to go undefeated, but I don't expect them to lose to the Argos this week. The Owls are on a tear. I love everything that they're doing. They struggled in the first half against the Stampeders, but like great teams do, they figured it out at halftime and came out for the win. I'm Owls all the way next week. Okay. The next game after that, we've got the Stampeders versus the Bombers. We've got the Stampeders who've been just kind of meddling in the middle. And we have the Bombers who've not done much at all. The only win they have is with their backup quarterback. But Zach Collaros should be coming back from injury this week. And he's playing. Will the Stamps learn their lessons from their giving up the win against like last week? Or is it Winnipeg who's going to take back control and start dominating again? Which they should.
You know what? I hate to bet against the Calgary Stampeders. I love the Stamps. I love my Stamps, but you know who scares me? One player scares me: Willie Jefferson, and how he had
heating it up this week.
Yeah, he had a great game, and gosh, a quarterback trying to get his rhythm. What do you do when you're a quarterback trying to you go those low passes to your running back just to get? And Willie Jefferson is the guy that blocks all of those. He's 6'7". He's got the wingspan of like humongous. So I'm going to take Winnipeg just because of one player that can get in the Stamps' head. And I know that's weird, and I hate saying it, but I'm taking Winnipeg.
Yeah. Matt, I'll tell you, this is every week. We only have one game usually that like we don't agree on. This time I've got to say the Bombers. You know what, Chev? Let me be different this time. Collaros is back, but I haven't seen any spark from him. The Stampeders are kind of just in the middle. They're just like kind of meh. But Mayer at times has looked really good.
Yep.
That offensive line is starting to come around and take over series when they have to. They got the defense. We still not getting that pass rush going. I will take Calgary.
Bounce back game.
I will say Calgary. They've got more tools going for them right now. James is going to yell at me because I think the Bombers might have just signed Lucky Whitehead, which is going to have a huge impact on that. But I'll go out on a limb and I'll say that Dave Dickinson will get Jake Mayer so focused this week that this offense is going to get going, and they'll do enough to beat a dysfunctional Bombers team.
Okay, so let's look at this next one, because this is the one that all eyes will be on Saturday, July 13th. the Rough Riders at BC Lions. Who you got?
I've got it. You know, I know who I'd like to see. I'd like to say that Saskatchewan. I don't even know if Trevor Harris is back this week. And you know what? I don't know if Harris is back this week, and I don't think they've got AJ Ouellette utilized the way they're supposed to use him yet. When you're lacking and this is why maybe when you have a defensive coordinator as your head coach, they have got to find a way to make Ouellette a bigger difference maker in the game. He's an outstanding player. He's getting the tough yards. He's increasing his average, but I don't think it's enough to beat the best yet. And if I look at the West, the BC Lions are the best. I call it the BC Lions.
Yeah, you know what? I'm taking BC too because they dismantled a Hamilton offense that was playing really well.
And the defense. It looked like that might have been on the Hamilton defenders, but a Hamilton defense had no idea what was happening in front of them.
I just think Vernon Adams is too hot, and at some point you got to have a quarterback that can win you games. And I'm not sure if Saskatchewan's Shea Patterson can do that yet. He hasn't proven enough for me to pick them, and I just can't see Saskatchewan's defense winning. Maybe they can.
Saskatchewan's defensive line is going to have to take over the game and make Vernon Adams uncomfortable. That's their only shot. That D line has to take over the game for the Riders.
He is that quarterback that can run and throw, and that's why I think he'll be fine. And they got
not if he's on his back.
Yeah, but Justin McKinnon, 6'7", he's catching everything over people. Okay, and finally, Ottawa versus Edmonton. I don't think
to me, this is the most fascinating game of the week.
You think so? Hey,
I think so.
Oh, I think it's a dud. I think it's going to be a dud. It's a Sunday game. You got Ottawa.
The Elks. I'm telling you. Okay, I'll make the call here. The Elks have not played a dud game yet. They found a way to lose a couple of games.
Yeah.
But they're playing some good ball. I'm saying McLeod, Bethel, Thompson is this one. In fact, this would be my lock of the week. I think the Elks are going to rise above. It's in Edmonton, and they're going to get their first win of the season. And it's going to be their first of probably about 8 to 10 this season.
They need to win because they only have two wins at home in the last 3 years, I believe.
Yeah, so but every loss this year has been to an undefeated team or a 4-1 team.
Bruno's voting with his head and not his heart, or his heart and not his head, because Ottawa, I mean, they couldn't win last year with that crummy guy, and they're gonna go win with him. Come on, the Ottawa. Listen, I'm taking Edmonton too. McLeod Bethel Thompson has really proven a lot to me. He left Toronto 2 years ago, having brought them to the Grey Cup. Took a chance to go to the NFL. You know, good for him. And he came back, and he has not missed a beat. The team around him isn't the same, but they did sign Sean Oakman this week, so they are bringing some guys from the old Toronto. The big 6'8" defensive lineman that was a CFL All-Star
stud.
Yeah, 2 years in a row. It's surprising that he got released by the Argos this year, but I think that I think Edmonton's going to win. You know, Bruno.
I think we're going to give Bruno the last word. He's made. I don't know if you've been following. He made some great comments here. He goes,
"Oh yeah,
Elks will never win with Chris Jones." I don't totally disagree. I'm not sure I'm a Chris Jones. Then he said, "Bring back Tom Higgins."
I saw that.
I'm telling you, Tom Higgins changed the culture of the Calgary Stampeders in the early 2000s because he's a very principled man. And he's very consistent. I don't know if he still wants to coach. But a guy like that is what you need to get a team turned around. Tom Higgins knows how to turn around a team. But then he says the people in Edmonton love Tom Higgins, and I'm not sure that they do. Maybe they do.
I mean, I don't know. It's hard. The Edmonton media is tough. Terry Jones, you know, I am surprised for how long Jones has been there the last couple of years now. He has certainly had a long leash because there's guys that have been there shorter. And
I don't know why he's getting the leash, but
he has some pedigree, you know. Whether it's his, you know, Grey Cup win in Toronto. He did one. What did they win one in Edmonton a couple of years ago with Mike Riley?
Yeah, I don't consider any of those truly his team though. I look at him like what was that guy's name? Chucky, right? John Gruden. John
Gruden.
He goes in there to Tony Dungy's team and he wins when there's other coaches that set the table for him, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Chris Jones was a hell of a defensive coordinator. He's run teams in a real wonky way that I don't think works in Canada.
Yeah. Hey, Sheldon, you know what? I think we should wrap this up. I'm the one saying it tonight. We did half an hour of overtime. Is he going to play that song? Because it almost blasted my ears. If you play that song, Trey, I got to lower my headphones because I was dying. But we did half an hour of overtime. We there. Yeah, I love it. We did half hour of overtime, and this time was you that wanted to go into overtime, which I love. I have to say, we talked about mental health, we talked about rodeo, Stampede, Shark Week, CFL. I will say this, and I'll be brutally honest. Yesterday, Sheldon and I, we both had a conversation. I was having a rough time. You were having a rough time. We're like, man, do we even do the show? Remember that conversation yesterday?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
An hour and a half into it. It's 12:30, and I couldn't be happier that we came back on a Tuesday night to do our little talk. We had such a compelling and interesting talk with Darryl. I learned so much.
Yeah.
Had great interaction and comments from so many of our friends. Tomorrow we're going to be meeting Craig Hannum at night for margaritas that I promised him from the last time he came here.
I'll be there.
And yeah, I'm just happy we did this. So Sheldon, again, thanks again for joining me on the air. I'm going to give you the last word. You can send it home. Thanks to all of you that joined us, all our friends. We love seeing your comments and we love hanging out with you on a Tuesday night. We really do. Really do. Sheldon?
Chevy, love you, brother. Love all you guys. Thanks so much for joining us. Honestly, you mean the world to us. This is why we do it. And my favorite thing of the whole night is honestly watching you guys interact. And like half the time you're not listening to us.
And thank you,
got
Trey.
Things to talk about. Trey, yeah, absolutely. Shout out to our new young producer. Trey, you've been on it the whole time. We really appreciate you guys. Nana Mona, I'm glad you could make it. It was late. We did the overtime just for you because, well, quite frankly, we missed you.
Yeah.
Anyway, love you all. We'll see you guys next week. Same time, same station. Thanks for listening to The Ride.